Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and the Armored Riders arrived in SH Figuarts while they were on the air, and with a bang! This is Kamen Rider Gaim in his orange arms, and with the full Figuarts treatment. On-air Figuarts releases can sometimes be a little hit or miss, but let me tell you right up front, Zawame City's heroes don't fool around. Because holy crap, Gaim's sculpt is incredible! His proportions aren't funky like Wizard, this is a return to form, with the wonkiest part being the sticky-outy way his shoulder pads tend to sit, which is also kind of design accurate no matter how you execute upon them. Everything is textured just right, and highlighted with gorgeous paintwork. The gold leaps off of the dark navy undersuit, and the silver and orange metallics are everything that was missing, and admittedly not demanded, from the arms change version. The figure catches light dynamically from just about every angle, and the helmet is proper, no longer dampening its compound eye effect for the sake of part swapping, and instead blazing that orange optic flare like nobody's business. Also, the Sengoku driver belt and open orange lock seat are ridiculously well detailed for their size, covered in teeny tiny paint apps and tampagraphs, right down to the microscopic images of the Dai Maru and Gaim's helmet profile. The Gaim Figuarts bring a new kind of pseudo-buck to SH Figuarts, as you do, so let's see how it turned out. The head posability is still pretty great. It's your regular Figuarts setup of a ball joint and a hinge, and then another ball joint, so ball, hinge, ball. It works pretty well, and it's not overly hindered despite, his helmet mullet and all the stuff around his collar. His shoulder pads are attached up here. I don't think aesthetically there was a way to have them not fastened at those obvious costume design hinges for the arms change toys, but they flap a lot, and they are convex on both ends, which means that if you look at them funny, they do stick out a bit, although I think they sit decently on this guy, about as decently as they could on a real-life example of the costume. His shoulders are on a ball socket connection inside the torso, and then a hinge to go outwards, and that ball socket connection in there allows for some forward motion as well. This stuff's a little bit flexible, and thus does not really get in the way. He's got pretty obvious bicep swivels, a double-jointed elbow that works quite happily, and plays real nice with all the sculpt. His wrists are Figuarts wrists, nothing new here. It's a pair of swivels with a hinge between them, and that's helpful for sword things, because if you arrange the hinge properly, he can point his sword, all like he's getting ready to end a fool. His waist joint and ab joint are a pair of ball joints, and the range on them's decent. The belt is a completely separate piece that kind of can float over everything, and I don't want to play with it too much because there's all this stuff attached to it, and I don't want the lock seat to, fly across the room, bounce on the floor, and go out the window. But his chest plate has a little bit of motion here. It's got a little bit of wiggle, I think mostly for if you want to bend him forwards, but I would be careful doing that, because that will very easily set up a situation where trying to bend him up again may lever the lock seat off of the belt and fire it across the room. You'll notice I tend to just have the knife here lower than it would be for show accuracy entirely so that it just holds the lock seat on there and it doesn't allow the lock seat to, as I've said multiple times, fly across the room. This also allows for some good swivelage throughout the torso. It's a little bit of creaking there, and I think that's mostly just the grippy material that the Sengoku driver belt is made out of. His hips are kind of Kuga hips. They are not the regular Figuarts pull down and rotate double swivelly connected ball joint setups. These are big, thick, universal joints where moving them outwards, you might notice, does not actually move the balls part? Sure, let's call it the balls part. Basically, you can see a big hinge here that this is moving along, and I think this is fine. It does mean that Gaim cannot kick nearly as high as some other Figuarts toys, but it does not really prevent him from assuming, a classic rider kick pose if you so choose. It just means he's not nearly as gymnastically flexible as some other figures in the line. But I think this is for mostly aesthetics again. It maintains the flow of the bodysuit. It certainly isn't for armored look, because, this is all just the undersuit here. So I'm surprised to see this as a design choice. I'm not offended by it, but it made me blink a little bit when I pulled this guy out of the box. There's a thigh swivel there. Double jointed knee that looks pretty good. Again, plays well with the sculpt and everything. Knee pad does not... Well, I was going to say the knee pads do not fly off, but I never really tugged on them like that before, so I guess if you do grab them and yank on them, they might fly off. But I've not had that happen unintentionally, aside from literally a few seconds ago when I kind of brought that on myself. There is a shoe cut above all the ankle joint stuff. There is an ankle joint, and then there's a hinge ankle tilt. It's not a pagan swivel ankle tilt, this is a straight up hinge. And finally, yay! So while I wouldn't call it like the best Figuarts body ever made, and I think there are better ones, this one isn't bad. He's not suffering and in a way that would make me go like, oh god, and this is like the base buck for all the rest of the Gaim Figuarts. It's perfectly fine. I think it works well for the Armored Rider look, and it's not limited in any way. It's not frustrating to play with. I like it a lot. It ain't no Zedo, but it's still pretty good. Stored on the left side of the Sengoku driver belt, the Muso Saber can be slid out for action just like on the roleplay toy. It looks great and has an excellent paint job, as one might expect. That Sengoku driver also works with a chop-in knife and removable lock seat. Unfortunately, the tensions of these connections are a few hairs short of rock solid, and I often prefer to leave the knife in a position that also holds the lock seat in place. The piece is tiny and detachable, which is kind of scary, but also means you can plug it into the Muso Saber if you want to get all Ich-ju-hyuk! Since the open lock seat is a static piece, an entirely extra and even tinier closed version is included. It's smaller than a pill and can be attached to the lock seat holder on the right side of the belt. Honestly, leave it in the box. Don't be a risk taker. Don't try to be a hero. Anyway, let's talk hands. There are fists, which should be a surprise to nobody at this point, and then there are open hands, kind of splayed and kind of posed. Oddly enough, that is it for non-grippy alternate hands, as the next three pairs are all designed for holding on to things. One pair is meant for the Muso Saber, while the other two slightly wider pairs allow for a straight or angled grippage of the Dai Dai Maru. As I said earlier, the Muso Saber looks intense, and the Dai Dai Maru stacks up next to it just as badass. Using some translucent plastic over painted parts to give a shiny look to its inner sword flesh gives the big orange blade an extra touch of pop, alongside all of the metallic orange paint. The two weapons look properly Sengoku in Gaim's hands, and have the lovely toyetic feature of plugging together to form a Naginata mode. The connection is solid, and I'm into the swords actually connecting, rather than an entirely separate Naginata piece being budgeted into the box. As the first representative of Kamen Rider Gaim's cast in SH Figuarts, I am very happy to report that this guy stands right up alongside other recent Rider Figuarts hits like Zedo or the Shinkocho Seiho remasters. Whoever handled this project was not content to see these on-the-air releases suffer from Wizard's proportions or Oz's limited legs. This guy was a strong start, and matched up to the hype I had while watching the show to such a degree, an exponential hype cyclone formed and got me intensely hyped for all the rest of the Gaim cast to appear in the SH Figuarts line. If you like the show, this figure is a must. The Sengoku driver is potentially a fiddly thing to work around, but if you just move the knife down a little bit to hold the lock seat in place, it's a problem solved in my opinion. I'm so happy to see one of my favorite Rider experiences to date get such strong representation in the action figure line where it needed to shine the most. Anyway, this has been internet personality Vangelus, and I think it's about time I took a quick trip back in time to see what the 70s were like in the land of SH Figuarts.